Welcome to the world united. Welcome to the world united.
So, how is this traditional Chinese medicine different from other systems of medicine?
Um, it's complementary, I would say. The way I deal with clients is that it's not like one system is better than the other, because life is a composite. For instance, even in terms of traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, when you read the ancient texts on the principles of these traditional medicines, what you would find is that they were talking at a time when there was not use of pesticide. When they tell you to use like milk, in Ayurveda, there's a lot of talk about milk and ghee. They were talking about, when they speak about ghee, they were talking about that clarified butter, which what you call the ghee, when the first churning of the milk. That you hardly get anymore. And then a lot of the foods that they tell you to eat, both in Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine, now they're all grown with pesticides and stuff like this. And so the traditional way can't always be the right way anymore. Plus, the philosophies and the dietary recommendations were made for a particular type of physiology and people. But when you come into the West, as you know, Western people eat all kinds of different foods. And you can give them just a plain panchakarma diet or a Chinese kind of diet using just the traditional spices alone, because it's one of the nice things about Maharshi Ji was that he said the foods that exist in your area would be more natural to you rather than foods from another country. And so where Chinese medicine is concerned and Ayurvedic medicine, I follow those principles. Even though the underlying truth and basic principles like dosha in terms of Ayurveda, or like yin and yang and 5 elements in terms of Chinese medicine remain the same. So those basic principles, yes, they are your guidelines. But one thing that I would mention when you speak about Chinese medicine, I was fortunate to learn my first set of instruction in Chinese medicine was from a very old Chinese doctor who somehow found his way to Trinidad, running from the war with the Japanese back in the 20s. And at that time, the Japanese were destroying all the learning of the Chinese as they invaded China. And they were killing all the masters. And he ran with all his books. And he came to Trinidad. And this is where I started my training under him. It just so happened he and my father came from the same village. So he accepted me because it was very difficult. He didn't want to accept me at all. But when I told him who my father was, he just happened to know my father. And so he accepted me, to train me in this tradition of Chinese medicine. And part of my training, because Maharshi, when he learned about this man, he said, I need to study with him because he would have the real knowledge. And it turned out to be true. I would bring books on Chinese medicine for him to look at, and he would tell me they are all wrong. The principles are not right. And this man was extremely good. He just need to hear what was wrong with you. And I'll give you a simple example so that you could understand a little deeper. There was a case of a woman from Canada who every month she would have to be rushed to the ICU. She would just take in with intense pain and all this sort of thing. And this went on for years and it became very debilitating. And she decided that she would move back to where she came from in Canada and just stay there to die. At that point, she was already in a wheelchair. And her brother contacted us through Mashiji. And I told the doctor, and he said, this is the influence of the moon on her. I said, the moon? He said, yeah, the influence of cold. Ask her if this thing is happening 3 days before the full moon and staying until 3 days after the full moon. And when she checked, exactly. And so just with that little information, he made a medicine for her. And in those days, you could post medicine. So we posted that for her. And this woman revived. That was a skill that he had. And he told me that a lot of the way they train the doctors now are not right because they don't know the ancient training. You know? So one of the things, for instance, in both Ayurveda and Chinese medicine that I see have been lost is, I guess you have come from India, right?
Yes.
Your parents. And you would know that in the older tradition, you start with hot things. You drink hot tea. But now if you go to India, and I've been to India many times, you go to the restaurants, it's like in the West, they put a cold glass of water for you. The same thing in China. But that is not true because those cold things actually destroy your digestive system.
Yes.
And when I tell Chinese doctors this, they say, oh, where did you get that knowledge? Because they all know about this. Simple thing like that, that hot water itself, and this is a principle that everyone can use, hot water itself is medicine.
Yes.
You know, so these kinds of things. And so that's how I learned. I learned by being with him, seeing Western patients, and they could not understand him because of his way of speaking English. Because my father spoke like that, I could understand him, and I could understand the West. So I was the translator in between, and that's what I did before going on and studying, you know, in the traditional way. So that's my little history on Chinese medicine.
Yeah, it's wonderful to know like a woman from Canada got healed by the Chinese medicine.
Yeah, there are so many cases like that. He was such an expert, you know.
Okay.